fact that the Greek heroes acted in the context of war, while Gilgamesh acted in isolation, with the exception of Enkidu's brief existence, and could equal Heracles. 37. Considering how the text would be viewed from the standpoint of its time is tricky, as George Smith acknowledges that there is no Sumerian or Akkadian word for myth or heroic narrative, just as there is no ancient recognition of poetic narrative as a genre. 38. Linz Brandau 2019 recognizes that the prologue of He Who Saw the Abyss recalls the inspiration of the Greek muses, even though there is no assistance from the Sumerian gods here. 39. In fact, Sir Jonathan Sacks, Neil MacGregor, and BBC Radio 4 interpret the Epic of Gilgamesh's flood myth as having a pantheon of gods who are misanthropes willing to condemn humanity to death. 40. With the exception of EA. It is also made explicit that Gilgamesh rose to the rank of an ancient wise man. Antediluvian. 41. Linz Brandau continues, noting how the poem would have been put on a stele, Naru, that at first Naru could be seen as the genre of the poem. 41. Taking into consideration that the reader, or scribe, would hitherto pass the text on. 42. Without omitting or adding anything. 43. The prologue also implies that Gilgamesh narrated his story to a copyist, thus being a kind of autobiography in third person. 44. Content of the standard Babylonian version tablets. This summary is based on Andrew George's translation. 23. Tablet 1. The story introduces Gilgamesh, king of Iraq. Gilgamesh, 2/3 god and 1/3 man, is oppressing his people, who cry out to the gods for help. For the young women of Iraq, this oppression takes the form of a droit du seigneur, or lord's right, to sleep with brides on their wedding night. For the young men, the tablet is damaged at this point. It is conjectured that Gilgamesh exhausts them through games, tests of strength, or perhaps forced labor on building projects. The gods respond to the people's pleas by creating an equal to Gilgamesh who will be able to stop his oppression. This is Enkidu, who is covered in hair and lives in the wild. He is spotted by a trapper, whose livelihood is being ruined because Enkidu is uprooting his traps. The trapper tells the sun god Shamash about the man, and it is arranged for Enkidu to be seduced by Shamhat, a temple prostitute, his first step towards being tamed. After 6 days and 7 nights, or 2 weeks, according to more recent scholarship, 45, of lovemaking and teaching Enkidu about the ways of civilization, she takes Enkidu to a shepherd's camp to learn how to be civilized. Gilgamesh, meanwhile, has been having dreams about the imminent arrival of a beloved new companion and asks his mother, Ninsun, to help interpret these dreams. Tablet 2. Fragment of Tablet 2 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Suleimani Museum, Iraq. Shamhat brings Enkidu to the shepherd's camp, where he is introduced to a human diet and becomes the night watchman. Learning from a passing stranger about Gilgamesh's treatment of new brides, Enkidu is incensed and travels to Iraq to intervene at Ording. When Gilgamesh attempts to visit the wedding chamber, Enkidu blocks his way, and they fight. After a fierce battle, Enkidu acknowledges Gilgamesh's superior strength and they become friends. Gilgamesh proposes a journey to the cedar forest to slay the monstrous demigod Humbaba in order to gain fame and renown. Despite warnings from Enkidu and the Council of Elders, Gilgamesh is not deterred. Tablet 3. The elders give Gilgamesh advice for his journey. Gilgamesh visits his mother, the goddess Ninsun, who seeks the support and protection of the sun god Shamash for their adventure. Ninsun adopts Enkidu as her son, and Gilgamesh leaves instructions for the governance of Uruk in his absence. Tablet 4. The second dream of Gilgamesh on the journey to the forest of cedar. Epic of Gilgamesh, tablet from Hattusa, Turkey. 13th century BC. Noise Museum, German Gilgamesh and Enkidu journey to the cedar forest. Every few days they camp on a mountain, and perform a dream ritual. Gilgamesh has 5 terrifying dreams about falling mountains, thunderstorms, wild bulls, and a thunderbird that breathes fire. Despite similarities between his dream figures and earlier descriptions of Humbaba, Enkidu interprets these dreams as good omens, and denies that frightening images represent the forest guardian. As they approach Cedar Mountain, they hear Humbaba bellowing, and have to encourage each other not to be afraid. Tablet 5. The heroes enter the cedar forest. Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest, insults and threatens them. He accuses Enkidu of betrayal, and vows to disembowel Gilgamesh and feed his flesh to birds. Gilgamesh is afraid, but with some encouraging words from Enkidu the battle commences. The mountains quake with the tumult and the sky turns black. The god Shamash sends 13 winds to bind Humbaba, and he is captured. Humbaba pleads for his life and Gilgamesh pities him. He offers to make Gilgamesh king of the forest, to cut the trees for him, and to be his slave. Enkidu, however, argues that Gilgamesh should kill Humbaba to establish his reputation forever. Humbaba curses them both and Gilgamesh. Tablet V of the Epic of Gilgamesh, reverse side of the newly discovered Tablet V of the Epic of Gilgamesh. It dates back to the Old Babylonian period, 2003-1595 BC, and is currently housed in the Suleimani Museum, Iraq. Dispatches him with a blow to the neck, as well as killing his 7 sons. 45. The 2 heroes cut down many cedars, including a gigantic tree that Enkidu plans to fashion into a gate for the Temple of Enlil. They build a raft and return home along the Euphrates with giant tree and, possibly, the head of Humbaba. Tablet 6. Gilgamesh rejects the advances of the goddess Ishtar because of her mistreatment of previous lovers like Dumuzi. Ishtar asks her father Anu to send the bull of heaven to avenge her. When Anu rejects her complaints, Ishtar threatens to raise the dead who will outnumber the living and devour them. Anu states that if he gives her the bull of heaven, Uruk will face 7 years of famine. Ishtar provides him with provisions for 7 years in exchange for the bull. Ishtar leads the bull of heaven to Uruk, and he causes widespread devastation. He lowers the level of the Euphrates River and dries up the marshes. He opens up huge pits that swallow 300 men. Without any divine assistance, Enkidu and Gilgamesh murder him and offer up his heart to Shamash. When Ishtar cries out, Enkidu hurls one of the hindquarters of the bull at her. The city of Uruk celebrates, but Enkidu has an ominous dream about his future failure. Tablet 7. In Enkidu's dream, the gods decide that one of the heroes must die because they killed Humbaba and Gugalana. Despite the protestations of Shamash, Enkidu is marked for death. Enkidu curses the great door he has fashioned for Enlil's temple. He also curses the trapper and Shamhat for removing him from the wild. Shamash reminds Enkidu of how Shamhat fed and clothed him and introduced him to Gilgamesh. Shamash tells him that Gilgamesh will bestow great honors upon him at his funeral, and will wander into the wild consumed with grief. Enkidu regrets his curses and blesses Shamhat instead. In a second dream, however, he sees himself being taken captive to the netherworld by a terrifying angel of death. The underworld is a house of dust and darkness whose inhabitants eat clay, and are clothed in bird feathers, supervised by terrifying beings. For 12 days, Enkidu's condition worsens. Finally, after a lament that he could not meet a heroic death in battle, he dies. In a famous line from the epic, Gilgamesh clings to Enkidu's body and denies that he has died until a maggot drops from the corpse's nose. Tablet 8. Gilgamesh delivers a lament for Enkidu, in which he calls upon mountains, forests, fields, rivers, wild animals, and all of Iraq to mourn for his friend. Recalling their adventures together, Gilgamesh tears at his hair and clothes in grief. He commissions a funerary statue, and provides grave gifts from his treasury to ensure that Enkidu has a favorable reception in the realm of the dead. A great banquet is held where the treasures are offered to the gods of the netherworld. Just before a break in the text there is a suggestion that a river is being dammed, indicating a burial in a riverbed, as in the corresponding Sumerian poem, The Death of Gilgamesh. Tablet 9. Tablet 9 opens with Gilgamesh roaming the wild wearing skins, grieving for Enkidu. Having now become fearful of his own death, he decides to seek Utnapishtim, the faraway, and learn the secret of eternal life. Among the few survivors of the Great Flood, Utnapishtim and his wife are the only humans to have been granted immortality by the gods. Gilgamesh crosses a mountain pass at night and encounters a pride of lions. Before sleeping he prays for protection to the moon god Sin. Then, waking from an encouraging dream, he murders the lions and uses their skins for clothing. After a long and perilous journey Gilgamesh arrives at the twin peaks of Mount Mashu at the end of the earth. He comes across a tunnel which no man has ever entered, guarded by two scorpion monsters, who appear to be a married couple. The husband tries to dissuade Gilgamesh from passing, but the wife intervenes, expresses sympathy for Gilgamesh, and, according to the poem's editor Benjamin Foster, allows his passage. 46. He passes under the mountains along the road of the sun. In complete darkness he follows the road for 12 double hours, managing to complete the trip before the sun catches up with him. He arrives at the Garden of the Gods, a paradise full of jewel-laden trees. Tablet 10. Gilgamesh meets a wife Siduri, who assumes that he is a murderer or thief because of his disheveled appearance. Gilgamesh tells her about the purpose of his journey. She attempts to dissuade him from his quest, but sends him to Urshanabi the ferryman, who will help him cross the sea to Utnapishtim. Gilgamesh, out of spontaneous rage, destroys the stone charms that Urshanabi keeps with him. Gilgamesh tells his story, but when he asks for help, Urshanabi informs him that he has just destroyed the objects that can help them cross the waters of death, which are deadly to the touch. Urshanabi instructs Gilgamesh to cut down 120 trees and fashion them into punting poles. When they reach the island where Utnapishtim lives, Gilgamesh recounts his story, asking him for his help. Utnapishtim reprimands him, declaring that fighting the common fate of humans is futile and diminishes life's joys. Tablet 11. Tablet 11, or the Flood Tablet, of the Epic of Gilgamesh. British Museum. Gilgamesh observes that Utnapishtim seems no different from himself, and asks him how he obtained his immortality. Utnapishtim explains that the gods decided to send a great flood. To save Utnapishtim, the god Enki told him to build a boat. He gave him precise dimensions, and it was sealed with pitch and bitumen. I's entire family went aboard together with his craftsmen and all animals of the field. A violent storm then arose which caused the terrified gods to retreat to the heavens. Ishtar lamented the wholesale destruction of humanity, and the other gods wept beside her. The storm lasted 6 days and nights, after which all the human beings turned to clay. Utnapishtim weeps when he sees the destruction. His boat lodges on a mountain, and he releases a dove, a swallow, and a raven. When the raven fails to return, he opens the ark and frees its inhabitants. Utnapishtim offers a sacrifice to the gods, who smell the sweet savor and gather around. Ishtar vows that as she will never forget the brilliant necklace that hangs around her neck, she will always remember this time. When Enlil arrives, angry that there are survivors, she condemns him for instigating the flood. Enki. George Smith transliterated Tablet 11. Also castigates him for sending a disproportionate punishment. Enlil blesses Utnapishtim and his wife, and rewards them with eternal life. This account largely matches the flood story that concludes the epic of Atrahasis. 47:32. The main point seems to be that when Enlil granted eternal life, it was a unique gift.